March 10th, 1964, the birth of Queen Elizabeth II's fourth child, Prince Edward, born in the Belgian suite of Buckingham Palace, England. All the Queen's children were royal home births. But what is interesting is that Prince Edward was born in a very different way from her other children. The first three were all reputedly born by a process known as twilight sleep, or its German word, Dämmerschlaf. It's a controversial process where the labouring woman's injected with a drug combination of morphine and scopolamine, and then, literally unconscious, the baby is pulled out with forceps. At first, it was heralded by feminists as the miracle painless birth, or so it was supposed to be. It brought problems of waking up to a baby they didn't bond with or even recognise. It took decades to be resigned to history. On face value, twilight sleep went well enough for the Queen to deliver her children, but it's very interesting that when it came to her fourth and final birth, she herself decided she wanted to be alert and conscious to give birth. And when her parents suggested moving to a quieter room away from the noise of the crowds gathering outside the palace, she insisted, "I want my baby to be born in my room, amongst the things I know." The Queen's husband, Prince Philip, had always been a nervous, expectant father, and during the previous labours had spent the time swimming and playing squash on the palace courts. But by the time of Edward's birth, the Queen's fourth birth, he stayed at her bedside, holding her hand. It was said that the Queen had got the idea from magazines, so Prince Philip became the first male royal partner in years to be present in the delivery room. We hear so much about the precedent that Queen Victoria set in 1853 when she first used chloroform and opened the way for drugs in labour ever since. Why can't we hear more about the physiological legacies that our current Queen has offered?
Because not many people know that the Queen broke more than one tradition. 16 years earlier, she'd already broken the long-standing tradition of royal observation. Going back, royal births have a long historical tradition of everything that goes against a birth being undisturbed. At the birth of any potential heir to the throne in history, the room would be heaving with observers to bear witness. Marie Antoinette in 1778 was nearly crushed to death by the crowds of strangers pouring into her chamber, and it was no surprise that she literally passed out from the awful disturbance that would be unthinkable for any other mammal. Queen Victoria decided to just have the Home Secretary observe her birth, when in 1948 our Queen, then Princess, gave birth for the first time completely unobserved to her first child, Prince Charles, breaking centuries of tradition. In the same room, the Belgian suite, she gave birth also to her last child, Edward, recreated here at Belvoir Castle in Lincolnshire, England.
I think what really fascinates me about this birth in particular is that looking at royal history, all the births that came before this birth and then the births that came after, this birth seemed to me very special because it hit the right balance. The births that came before this seemed to me to be dangerous by use of drugs, and the births that came after unnecessarily hospitalised. But the birth that the Queen had with Prince Edward was perfect in the sense that she had her midwife, she had her obgyn there, but she was with her partner Philip. No observation, no unnecessary intruders. Undisturbed, unobserved, primarily connected and lovingly supported at home, I find our current Queen's quiet story inspiring in a way that should be shared. I've worked with a team for months on preparing this scene, right down to the nurses' watches and doctors' spectacles. I'm taking artistic license a little bit. Technically, she would have had a surgical gown on, but I wanted to use that picture as a direct inspiration to insert that visual of the Queen in 1964 into this image. We have actors playing the Queen's midwife, Helen Rowe, and her obstetrician gynaecologist, John Harold Peel, who were both present at all the Queen's births. I've been fact-checking with the midwife advisor who's worked closely on 8 years of the Call the Midwife TV series. She also helped choreograph the Queen's birth scenes in the TV series The Crown, which includes a scene of the birth that I'm portraying. Right down to the birth position, semi-recumbent on the bed, that visually confirms that this was close to the truth of how it happened. We can only speculate why the Queen chose to give birth in the way she did to Prince Edward, why she wanted to be alert and conscious. In retrospect, how she feels about her fourth birth compared to the other ones. But it's really nice, I think, that she laid down the terms.
3, 2, 1.
Lighting setup is incredibly simple. We wanted to keep it very natural looking, so I've only got one strobe, Ceros L, bronze colour, strip box, feathering down here, almost on full power actually. Obviously we're using the phase, so we need a lot of light, mimicking the natural light coming in.
Reenacting this scene is as much about asking a cultural question as it is to make a piece of art. This is a timely topic. We have a third royal baby due in April to Prince William with Kate Middleton, Duchess of Cambridge, 2 months away from the time we're shooting this image. There have been, interestingly, strong rumours that she could give birth at home at Sandringham Estate or Kensington Palace. Creating an image like this has the power of visually flying the flag for the big question: is it time, after 54 years, to reinstate royal home birth?